Hαίrete, friends. Welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves, and today we're going to be taking a look at some faked curiosities in the ancient world. Let's go ahead and get started. My major source for this video is a book entitled The First Fossil Hunters by Adrian Mayer. Not only is it a great book, but it's also just a great read. I highly recommend it, and I've used it for several videos now. The basic premise around this book is that fossils don't just exist in the modern world. Obviously, they've been around for quite a long time now, and so occasionally people in the ancient world would stumble across fossils and then come up with all kinds of various explanations for them. Generally speaking, the geographic makeup of the Mediterranean means that there are a lot of fossils from the Ice Age that are relatively close to the surface, and these can often be exposed just by a really big storm blowing through or by someone just going out in a field and doing a little bit of digging. It was pretty easy, again, relatively speaking, to bump into these things, and so it would happen on occasion. And when they found them, the most common theory was that these were leftovers from a heroic or a mythic age, right? Obviously, in this age, there would be heroes and monsters and giants and all of that fun, larger-than-life stuff roaming around. And obviously, unfortunately, we don't have all of that cool stuff wreaking havoc today, but we have proof that they once did because we have these bones. So generally, that was how they interpreted them, and because they thought that way, usually they would take the fossils and place them into a temple or a shrine of some hero or god that they guessed the bone might be associated with, or occasionally they were placed in private collections of people like Augustus, emperors, etc. Well, like I said, it's perfectly possible that some farmer in the ancient world might stumble across a mammoth bone or something like that. Some of the stories that we have surviving from the ancient world are definitely more suspicious than others. And we know that humans in all ages are perfectly capable of duping one another and coming up with all kinds of fabrications in order to entertain each other, in order to make money, etc. And so some of these stories and these artifacts we suspect were very likely fake. Obviously, none of them have survived until today, so we can't run tests or anything to prove this, but again, they are highly suspicious, and so that is what we're going to be looking at for the rest of this video. We're going to start off by looking at a passage from Aelian, who's one of my favorite authors. He is a Greek living under the Roman Empire, and he's an encyclopedist of sorts. He is fascinated with animals, and so he makes this catalog that basically goes through all of the animals that he can think of, as well as all of the facts that he can think of about those animals. And he will often include fantastical creatures and fantastical facts, again, about them, but the whole thing is nonetheless fascinating from start to finish. So we're going to be taking a look at a passage where he describes one of these fantastical creatures that is part human and part donkey, essentially. And he does state that he hasn't actually seen this thing. He's only heard about it from other people. But perhaps most interestingly, he demonstrates that he's aware that there are artificers. There are people who fake these things, whether that be just through tall tales and myths and stories, right? They can come up with all kinds of crazy critters. But he even mentions wax. So it seems like he's aware that there are people in the ancient world who might make fake artifacts and fake animals with wax and other substances. There is a certain creature which they call an onocentaura, and anybody who has seen one would never have doubted that the race of centaurs once existed, and that artificers did not falsify nature, but that time produced even these creatures by blending dissimilar bodies into one. But whether in fact they came into being and visited us at one and the same period, or whether a rumor, more ductile than any wax and too credulous, fashioned them and by some miraculous combination fused the halves of a horse and a man while endowing them with a single soul, let us pass them by. But this creature of which my discourse set out to speak, I have heard described as follows. Its face is like that of a man and is surrounded by thick hair. Its neck below its face and its chest are also those of a man, but its teats are swelling and stand out on the breast. Its shoulders, arms, and forearms, its hands too, chest down to the waist, are also those of a man. But its spine, ribs, belly, and hind legs closely resemble those of an ass. Likewise, its color is ashen, although beneath the flanks it inclines to white. The hands of this creature serve a double purpose, for when speed is necessary they run in front of the hind legs, and it can move quite as fast as other quadrupeds. Again, if it needs to pluck something or put it down or to seize and hold it tight, what were feet become hands. It no longer walks but sits down. The creature has a violent temper. At any rate, if captured, it will not endure servitude, and in its yearning for freedom declines all food and dies of starvation. Next, we're going to look at a passage from Pausanias. So Pausanias is another Greek author writing during the Roman Empire, and he is a travel writer. So he wanders around and visits all the different cities and little towns in Greece, and then describes the monuments and the landmarks and the little folklore of each of these locations. It is really interesting and fun, and the passage that we're looking at describes a collection of curiosities, basically, and he's specifically describing a triton that has been pickled and preserved for display. So a triton is another mythological creature that's part human, part fish something for the tail and the bottom half. And apparently this thing has been preserved and put up for curious people like Pausanias to come and see, and so he gives us a description of it. In the temple of Dionysus, the image too is worth seeing, being of Parian marble and a work of Calamus. But a greater marvel still is the Triton. The grander of the two versions of the Triton legend relates that the women of Tanagra, before the orgies of Dionysus, went down to the sea to be purified, were attacked by the Triton as they were swimming, and prayed that Dionysus would come to their aid. The god, it is said, heard their cry and overcame the Triton in the fight. The other version is less grand but more credible. It says that the Triton would waylay and lift all the cattle that were driven to the sea. He used even to attack small vessels until the people of Tanagra set out for him a bowl of wine. They say that attracted by the smell he came at once, drank the wine, flung himself on the shore, and slept, and that a man of Tanagra struck him on the neck with an axe and chopped off his head. For this reason, the image has no head, and because they caught him, it is supposed that it was Dionysus who killed him. I saw another Triton among the curiosities at Rome, less in size than the one at Tanagra. The Tritons have the following appearance. On their heads, they grow hair like that of marsh frogs, not only in color, but also in the impossibility of separating one hair from another. The rest of their body is rough with fine scales, just as is the shark. Under their ears, they have gills and a man's nose, but the mouth is broader and the teeth are those of a beast. Their eyes seem to me blue, and they have hands, fingers, and nails like the shells of the murex. Under the breast and belly is a tail like a dolphin's instead of feet. I have no idea how someone went about sewing that monstrosity together, but that does seem to be the best explanation, maybe? I don't know. That's very strange. Let me know in the comments what your theories are. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Special thank you, as always, to subscribers and to Patreon members, and I hope to see all of you again next week. Χαίρετε.